The commander giving cover and instructions, the war king Hogni and the chariot are also participating in the battle, and the alliance adventurers let out their voices in despair. The formation was shattered, and Lili, who was looking at the battlefield from the tomb, was so unhappy that her face was livid and she finally lost consciousness. Aisha. The troops in the center were killed. Bastard. That first-tier group of adventurers, you monsters. As soon as the rising dust cleared, Mikoto and Aisha saw that the core army was almost completely destroyed by Hogni and Alan, and at the same time, they let out bitter screams. As in the dominant configuration, among the horizontal formations of faction and coalition forces, core troops are the most powerful. Among them, level 5 Tsubaki is deployed, and combat forces such as adventurers and blacksmiths also receive the most people. However, the troops were on the verge of total annihilation. The adventurers were not allowed to escape and were brutally attacked. This scene is no longer a normal war. What are we going to do? Lili can't handle commanding the center and right wing. If this continues. A decision after worrying for a long time. Now the left wing is also trapped in a large melee. Someone must come to the rear and make sacrifices, otherwise they cannot even cross the battlefield and reach the center. Shaking off her guilt, Aisha was about to open her mouth and say to the Amazons fighting around, "You just died here." The horsewoman in the corner, 4 people, were knocked down at the same time. Aisha turned her head along with the stunned Mikoto, and what was reflected in her eyes were 4 black shadows. It's a useless plan. How can it be accomplished? Needless to say. After all, I am waiting here. Sand-colored helmet and armor of the same color. Spear, sledgehammer, great axe, great sword, quadruples with 4 weapons appeared in front of the left troops. For brothers, the Gulliver. For flame gold warriors. In the face of trembling life, the 3 younger brothers' lips curled into mocking shapes. A reenactment of the festival of the goddess. Let's defeat them again. Finally, the eldest son Alfred said sympathetically. To Lady Freya, you just landed here. Don't belittle people. After the furious Aisha, the blood-covered Amazons also roared. The flame of the magic sword, the light of leveling up and the fluctuation of gravity are injected into it, and they begin to resist the tough warriors led by the quadruplets with all their might. After the minuses, there are still minuses. The mirror floating above the main street reflects the situation of this war, and it could be people, adventurers, or gods who stare and say so. Perhaps everyone is whispering. That's just a devastating one-sided game cutscene. Hogni is also the strongest in hand-to-hand combat and in the center, use the stupid cat, which is good at maneuverability, to defeat the magic sword troops, and use the less damaged left wing to block it with help. Of villains. This standard answer is nothing interesting. Hayden said boredly, looking at the battle situation on the temple roof of his own camp. Even if the first-level adventurers are not kept first and are thrown onto the battlefield once the war starts, the scene should be similar to the present one at the end. However, Hayden wanted to be safe. As a military advisor, he knows very well how deadly the word first-tier adventurer downfall is. If Hogni or Alan and the others fall, even tough warriors who aren't afraid of death will be shaken, causing morale to plummet to the bottom. Therefore, it is necessary to reach the current state where the only nuisance factor of Kratzo's magic swords has been completely eliminated, and then use the first-tier adventurer's greatest weapon. The cruelty is enough to make Lili and Daphne desperate. Most of the main forces of the faction and coalition forces have been forced out, but one rabbit is missing. In such a huge mess, he still clearly saw that the white-haired boy he had trained had still not appeared. Even if the charged bombardment is dropped on the main battlefield like a bomb, while Hythe and the others are still there, the situation is still unfavorable. Even now, adding just a level 5 will not be a step towards bringing the dead back to life. The stupid rabbit who was killed so many times in the Battle of the Desert should have figured it out himself, Hayden muttered to himself. Instead, if the coalition faction wants to win, it can only use that main battleground as bait. The white elf even foresaw the coalition forces thinking like a demon and then raised his head. His narrowed eyes watched the sides of the island away from the main battlefield. Southwest, or northwest? I was running on the northwest side. Dodge everyone and be cautious while speeding. Only one person rushed towards Freya Familia's base camp. Lily, I'm going to fight everyone. No. Mr. Bell, please go to Lord Freya's house now. Hit the left shoulder every now and then, and the roar of the battlefield behind, without confirmation, you can know it's the miserable cry of your companions, almost made me turn and go back, but the voice of Lili's eyes didn't allow me do it. The demonic sword of Clozo spewed flames, and when the battle began, I took a detour to the northwest of the island, preparing to make a big detour to Freya's family, where the forces of the coalition of factions clashed. Behind the main battlefield. Here are Lili's instructions. She wants to use army-scale battle as bait to get closer to enemy base camp. There's also the White Devil and Boaz in the enemy formation. If you don't defeat the strongest adventurer in town, you won't be able to win. Lili was right. The so-called upper point is such an existence. During the goddess festival, I was overwhelmed by that powerful arm with just one strike, so I can feel it even more painfully. As long as that warrior is still in front of the throne and guarding the master, the faction and coalition forces will be defeated. We have no future if we don't solve LV's 7th strongest city. And if there is something that can defeat the brutal, only Mr. Bell can do it with the desire of the hero skill. I looked at the orbs attached to the gauntlet on my left arm as if it were the Labyrinth Street siege and then looked at my right hand. Looking at the light that rang the bell and already began to accumulate energy. In the sandbox distorted by charm, I lived in the Freya Familia, so my skill value also leaked to the master and others. After seeing the enemy's shadow, it should be too late to activate Hero's Desire. There's no way the tough warriors would allow that to happen. So start now. To use the most powerful attack, you can only start charging before encountering the enemy. The quest given to me was Assault. Constantly lurking and on the move, the enemy's strongest combat power, that is, Mr. Ottar's blow with the most power. If Clozo's demon sword's wave attack is empty, there is only one way to defeat. Number 1, this is the conclusion Lili drew at that moment. I can only sacrifice everyone except myself, even if I'm the only one, I must reach Freya-sama. If you don't, this war will not be won. Even if you are knocked down by Mr. Hogney, even if you are crushed to death by Mr. Allen, even if you are destroyed by Mr. Hayden and the others, you must attack Mr. Ottar. Reach out to Freya-sama, to that person's side. Hearing Lili speak like a commander, I clenched my teeth. It had to be done, and even the ringing of the doorbell made me realize it. I shook off my heartbreaking mood and continued to approach the enemy formation. Careful, quick. Must not be detected. Collapsing buildings, marble avenues, huge galleries with roofless pillars. I took advantage of the landscape worthy of urban ruins, hid in the dark, and after confirming that there was no presence or sighting of enemies, I quickly ran to the next location. Now I am, transparent state. The body is covered with Mr. Felza's spirit veil of reversal, and the figure is hidden. Even so, it cannot be approached boldly. The other part is the master and the others from Freya Familia. Even if they feel a little disobedient, it's over. Even though I used a bag of deodorant to hide myself from the demi-humans' noses so completely, I can't be completely reassured. Furthermore, the sound of power building up. Although it shouldn't hit the opponent's position, but it will definitely be exposed if it gets close. Along with the white light particles, the continuous contraction and relaxation of the bell made me break out in a cold sweat. Even if a scout could perfectly cover his breath, if he made a sound, he would be reduced to a fool who exposed his position to the enemy. And I had to keep this stupid secret and launch an attack.